for the individual recording. So I'm Joe Homnick, going to be talking about HTML, jQuery, and JavaScript in SharePoint 2010 development. And a lot of cool things that you can do in this area. Now, it's not going to be as much a deep dive, although we kind of look at some pretty cool code into JavaScript, into jQuery, into HTML5 or HTML. And, it's more of, okay, how can you leverage it inside of the SharePoint development environment? Additionally, I'm going to start out in the demos fairly slow, but we end up in patterns and practices, best SharePoint guidance, and into some of those individual demos. And they've got some really cool ones with jQuery and REST, and also the client object model. So for those people that are pretty advanced already in the subject, hang on as I go through. Maybe enjoy it a little bit. Some of them are fun. For those that are more on the beginner side, hang on when we get to the other things. But you'll enjoy the first part of it. So I think we got something for everybody. Oh. Notice below my name here and company, there is a bit.ly bundle. So I'm going to go out to the internet several times during the presentation and just grab things, JS files and so forth, right off the bat, and implement them right into SharePoint. Whenever I do that, you will find the link to those in this bundle. So it's bit.ly/sphtml case sensitive. And it basically drops you right here. So you can see the different links and so forth. We're going to go through. Ooh, JS video. So the only thing you have to really keep in mind there is that they are also on the front side. So if you forget it, you can go back for a reference. If we come up with one during the presentation, I'll throw it in there. Okay, so here's what we're going to be covering. HTML and JavaScript in SharePoint 2010. And especially with HTML5, you don't do a whole lot without implementing JavaScript. Then we're going to look at specific areas, like how to get it working, HTML5 inside of SharePoint. We'll then look at HTML, JavaScript, and the Fluent user interface. So a lot of different opportunities there, and really the only way to implement certain things related to the server ribbon, dialogues, notifications, all that up there. And then we'll finish off with the binding data with the JavaScript object model, OData, and JavaScript jQuery. I did get clearance. I didn't have to call it ECMAScript. They said I could call it JavaScript throughout the session. If there's an ECMAScript in there, point it out to me so I can clean it out of the slides. All right, so what do we mean by this HTML? You have the HTML markup language, the .html, but along with it, we're really talking about two other areas when we say, oh, it's HTML. It's an HTML application. And maybe even more important, we're talking about the JavaScript programming language and all of the libraries, the .js files. Probably the most notable of them, or one of the most notable of them, is jQuery. We're going to see how we can house that information inside of SharePoint 2010 and different types of methods of doing it. You also have, and this is another one that's really big now in HTML5, cascading style sheets. So it's really a combination of these three technologies whenever I say HTML. And that's what we're going to be covering, the HTML and JavaScript, not really the cascading style sheets in this session. So HTML5, the official W3C logos here. Looks pretty cool, kind of almost like a Superman type of thing, huh? So you have a whole new doc type, well, almost no doc type, HTML. We can do video. We have a canvas object, kind of like Silverlight with WPF. We can do input, audio, all sorts of things, offline types of scenarios. So Microsoft's already came out the last PDC and stated that their inner operating system model for development is going to be HTML5 moving into the future. So it's got quite a place, and we're going to see more and more tool sets coming out for it, besides the HTML5 IntelliSense that we have now with the Service Pack 1. So expect a whole lot of tooling, expect real big announcements in that unnamed conference coming up in Anaheim in the second week in September. So HTML5, really cool. How do we get it working? Well, first of all, the doc type is simply HTML. You also notice inside of the individual master page of SharePoint, we have a reference into content equals IE8. So really you need to change these inside of the master page if you expect HTML5 types of applications to work inside of SharePoint. Hey, some potential issues though. Already there's some reports if you don't have the IE settings, info path forms, big surprise, cause problems. So you might have to do the thing where you have different types of master pages depending upon the individual work that you are doing. So pointing to maybe an HTML5 master page and then a standard V4 master page. So something to consider. You don't do a whole lot in HTML5 without JavaScript. So you basically have those individual elements, but to manipulate a lot of them, you need to use JavaScript. So there's really three approaches in SharePoint to getting jQuery, .js types of libraries that hold a lot of this functionality into SharePoint. One is the script src tag, script source tag, and that will load it for every time each individual page, each individual web part has a source setting set to that. So if you're going to be going to ajax.microsoft.com, start.js. You also have another option known as the script link. With script link, you can reference it basically anywhere, and what it will do is put it at the very top of the master page and incorporate it throughout the individual site with that individual script link. So it maintains it. So pretty good way if you want to have it go through all your individual pages. Maybe you don't want to though, and you want to do the source type of a scenario. One issue though with the script link command, doesn't work in sandbox solutions. Anybody working with sandbox solutions out there? Really, that is best practices. We're going to go into patterns and practices, and that is the best practice. That is the default when you create a Visual Studio project for SharePoint. And now with Office 365 and SharePoint Online, you're going to be able to do a lot with the individual sandbox solutions and be able to deliver them in a whole new area for developer influence. So a little issue with the script link tag, got to work around for it. We will get to it through the individual demos. Additionally, we have a script type and then a .load scripts. And this is kind of a cool option here because basically what it allows you to do is maybe you have a whole bunch of different web parts that you might be using or not using, and they all need jQuery, and jQuery doesn't go into the script link because they don't put it in the layouts and so forth, which is another requirement for the script link. Then you can use this dynamic load, and it actually checks to see if jQuery is already loaded. So if you're doing this in multiple types of web parts, this is going to be the one to look at for your implementation. Another issue that you run into with the JavaScript and getting it running A lot of places in code have a body on load equals, so that as it loads up, well, this is really the domain of the master page, right? So getting this to actually load, there's a few different ways of doing it right through JavaScript. However, SharePoint gives you a function, sp body on load function names.push. So whenever you run into things and saying, okay, I'm trying to integrate this, it's got a body on load type of a tag, you can use this sp body on load function names.push, whatever you're pushing, to get it up there. All right, anybody want to see implementing HTML5 in SharePoint 2010, what you need to do? Here we go. It's got excited. So this is the kind of, cool, fun area of the demos. When we get towards the end, it gets pretty deep. But this is, if you haven't done it yet, I don't know why I keep minimizing these things. I got to switch monitors. So I'm over on my bit.ly bundle. And the first thing I'm going to implement is this canvas sample coming out of MSDN. So basically it executes the individual code and displays an image. So I can copy it in there. See if I can do this right. I usually throw it into Visual Studio and launch it. Pull this up. We'll edit it. And run it. Yeah, we'll save it here. There, the Documents library. And we should be able to launch it. And see what it looks like. Hello. All right, let's go into Visual Studio and do it like I should have. These on-the-fly things. There, I'll just start a new Visual Studio project. Yeah, let's get this. Find my way around here. We'll do a new project and an empty website. Add an HTML page in here. Paste that in, and you can see some of the HTML5. Basically what it's doing is firing off of a canvas, taking this picture from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and then executing some JavaScript with a display image and manipulating it into an oval shape. So just an example of what can be done with HTML5 canvas. So view it in the browser. There you go. That's how it should have worked the first time. So basically, here's the HTML5 part of it. It's going through, manipulating that image, putting it out there. I also have up here a Office 365, well, let's go to the other one, an Office 365 website. Notice hominic.sharepoint.com. I'm going to try and do just about all the demos in a sandboxed type of a solution, because I really think that's, except for some specific types of things, that's the way we're going to be going into the future. So let me go in here and I'll edit this page. And I will insert a content editor query web part. So notice the interface a little different than what you have on the on-premise. And it's in media and content. There's the content editor. We'll add it in there. I'll go and edit the web part. Add some new content in here. And I'll do it as HTML. So I'll edit the HTML source. And I'll take that same thing in my clipboard and put it into here. Let's press OK. We're only getting the HTML4 and below, right? We aren't getting the HTML5 manipulation of the canvas object. Just dropping that image into there. All right, so let's go around and fix this. So I'm going to pop back over into my remote desktop, go into SharePoint Designer, and I happen to be inside of homnick.sharepoint.com. Going to go down to the master pages, go into V4, edit it, because I know I can undo it later. Or I can create a whole new site later. It's all demo. It's a beta. It'll be gone eventually. Let me go into the code. And notice right up here, doc type, HTML, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, for HTML5 to work, you basically need to get rid of all of that. Additionally, forcing it to be IE8 specific. Let's get rid of that. And we'll save it out. I know what I'm doing, I think. All right. So we changed the master page. We should be able to go back onto this local computer here and basically refresh the page. Uh-oh. I never saved it, did I? Let's put it back in. These are all instructor points. I'm doing it on purpose. And if you believe that. All right, so let's edit this HTML source here. I'll throw it back in again. So I kind of went through that code pretty quickly. Did anybody notice something inside that code? And I kind of referred to it in the slide. Let's take a look. Ooh. Body on load, right? It's nice how it all cleans it up for me. Body on load. Notice it took the body tags out, took the HTML tags out. The editor of the web part knew that, hey, the master page is going to be serving all that stuff up for me. You don't need it in there. So how do we get it in there? Let's go on up in here, and right under this individual text, we will put in a underscore SP body. That's all right. Okay. SP body on load function names. Dot push. Well, thank you. Oh, I love this crowd. I was just testing to see if you're really listening. And we're going to be calling the display image. So really, I'm replacing that whole body on load related to the JavaScript requirement here because it's an ASP.NET Web Forms with master pages. You're inheriting from those master pages. We should be able to execute this now. Press OK. We have HTML5 working. Let's take it a little further, because we can. Let's go back to my bit.ly. Now let's do kind of a cooler one. Video. So pretty cool. And this is one of the things with HTML, HTML5, JavaScript. There are just loads of stuff out there. And this is a pretty cool little video player. Shows one of the really nice features of HTML5 in that it can degrade between versions and work no matter what type of a scenario is set up. So once we look at this code, we're going to basically see that, hey, if it's a Safari browser, it's going to execute the video in this format. If it's IE, it's going to be this format. And if it's nothing that supports HTML5, we'll use Flash. I don't know if they have Flash installed here or not, but we'll tell it looks different. So anyway, the example here is this little Disney Oceans, kind of cool. Let's see if we can play some video here. Uh-oh. Let's try again. Video doesn't work on this one. All right, let me switch over to my computer. I know it works there. Sorry, what? It's IE9. All right, let me plug in here. I'll switch over real quick. And we got a laptop. Let's see how that looks. Not bad. All right, so we're going to go down to, I'm going to plug this in so we have the sound. Where is it? Do we have Chrome on here? We could run it in Chrome. Doesn't matter to me. Notice here. I got them all. All right, let's see. No, you can't hear the sound really, but you get the idea, right? Pretty cool. It's got the hover over, the bar comes up, all of those capabilities. Well, we can just download that. Let me open it up. Let me find a place that I haven't put it before. How about Tech Ed? Somebody's playing it. You got better speakers than I do. So I basically just downloaded that from the website, pulled it up. Notice there's a demo HTML. Let me run it. Just comes right up in the browser. And away we go again. We'll let you watch it one time through. Oh, it's already here. Let's go to a different website. See, it works. But let me show you how to get it there. Oh, I guess I never saved that. We don't have our, interesting, timed out too. Okay, so let's go in and put another content editor web part in here. So I'm going to insert, go into web parts, media and content, content editor. There it is. We're going to edit it. And let's go grab the HTML to work with it. So notice I have demo.html. Let's open that up with Notepad. No, let's not. Let's open it up with Visual Studio. Nice and formatted now. And notice we have the HTML video player. Real quickly, we'll go through it. Oh, script source, video.js. So it has a separate video.js file that goes along with it. And basically it just gives you, by default, it just starts the video. When you hit it, you got all these different things. You can start it automatically, play it for a certain time, all that type of parameters that go into video.js. And then notice, here's the degradation. MP4 for Safari, WebM, OGG, and then if none of those hit, fall back into Flash. So it basically will play anywhere. So let's go and take that code now, and we'll put it into the content editor web part. So I'll edit the web part, add the new content, go over to format so I can get my HTML. Thought I'd copied it. Guess not. Go back over here, paste it on in. And we'll press OK. It'll start cleaning up the code, getting out of the doc types, HTML, heads, bodies, and so forth. Try to fix up the individual script reference. However, notice it fell down to that Flash one. You didn't see that on the other one, right? When I just launch it directly. That's because I'm not referencing the JS. So let's go in and we will go into all site content. Well, let's save our changes this time. There we go. We'll go into all site content, go into site assets, and we'll add some documents. And we'll upload multiple files because there's a CSS file also in there that is referenced. So let me go back to my video.js. Notice I have video.js, video-js.css. And I will drop those in there. Press OK. So I now have my JS files inside of my site settings. Let's go back to my top level and fix the code. So I'm going to edit the web part. Go into the HTML. Notice how it kind of cleaned it up. Oh, put site pages, video.js. Well, it's actually at sites. No, it isn't. It's at site assets instead of site pages. That's right, I'm in the root directory now. And let's do the same thing for the CSS file. There they are. Press OK. Press OK to save it. Notice any changes? It's running in HTML5. Notice it was buffering while it was coming down, well, before I'd started playing it. So, okay, you can see the whole thing. No, it's too long. We don't have 40 seconds to listen, to watch. It actually becomes addictive. You start looking at it over and over. And then, well, Disney knows their stuff, right? Now here's the cool part. Now it changes to whales and sharks and porpoises. And whales. Obviously spliced together. Okay, so you saw the whole thing. Let's move on. So getting HTML5 to work inside of SharePoint, and also some JavaScript concepts. Using the script source. Getting the body on load to work. Let's look at another area that is big in working with JavaScript. And this is the Fluent UI server ribbon. It's actually sp.ui. And off of that, you have the dialog framework, you have notifications, or notify. And notice here, inside of the definition, which is an XML file, command action JavaScript. And perform something. So the Fluent UI is made up of the server ribbon. It's made up of dialogues. This whole change in SharePoint 2010 over 2007. So there's sp.ui.modal dialog that can be manipulated. And you can see here with the function show dialog. Ooh, maybe you can put this and connect it right into a button on the ribbon, right? And also notify and status. Remember those things keep popping up as we're going through there? So let's look at implementing JavaScript and the Fluent UI. And this will get into a little heavier stuff after a little bit of a slow start. Once again, I've got to switch monitors, not minimize. So I'll go into my remote desktop here. We had our one SharePoint Designer demo. And I'm going to go and launch Visual Studio 2010 now. And I'm going to do a File, New, Project. And we're going to go into SharePoint 2010. And I'm going to just simply do an empty SharePoint project. And we'll call it TechEd. Press OK. Notice by default, deploys a sandbox solution. Best practices. One of the cool things too, and we're going to get to it, is with jQuery. You can kind of break out of that full trust or limited trust scenario that you have inside of a sandbox solution. So great use for this. Great use for being able to perform just about anything at this sandbox solution level. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to create a new module. So let's go ahead and get a module. We'll call it TechEd Dialog. Go ahead and create that module, and basically modules are how you can get data up into, .js files, right? .js files, right? Up into your individual webs through sandbox solutions. So for this purpose, though, I'm going to kind of repurpose it, get rid of the sample.txt. And I'm going to go and steal the XML from one of my SP HTML links. Here it is. Add a server ribbon. And there it's basically the XML that you need to use to build a button on the server ribbon. So let me hop back in here, and we'll paste that inside of here. And we'll grab a couple of images. See what those images are? There they are. So all content 32. It'll be TechEd Dialog, and it's actually inserting this into the document library. So when you go into the library settings, you will see it. So let's see which, where am I going out to? The project. Yeah, let's go right up to the root. Sandbox solution is true. And we'll build it. And deploy it. Cool thing about a sandbox solution, no application pull recycle, right? Goes out real quick. Another one, you can simply take this WSP and I could put it up onto Office 365. So let's go to that site now. Which happens to be a default site. And let me go into shared documents. Go into library. TechEd Dialog. So we aren't going to go into all the details and so forth. Really, we're looking at that one thing for command action, because that's where the JavaScript is. Because you need JavaScript. So we're doing hello world. Cool thing here is that as you come in here, this command action can be a whole reference to another .js file. It can be a commanding action, write the actual JavaScript in C#. Not sure if that's the greatest idea, but and we'll look at some of those. But for now, let's go grab this command action out of here. And we'll take a look at it since now we're back into the JavaScript. So we're doing a command action. We're setting a var called options, an object, and creating it from sp.ui.$create_dialog options. It is pointing to site pages, forms, all pages. The URL. This could be just URL being passed up in the parameter, right? Set some values, height, and a dialog return value callback function. And notice we're calling back TechEd dialog callback. And there it is. And basically we'll send a notification. So here's that other part of the, so now we're moving kind of into the dialog framework. We're moving into sp.ui.notify. You know those little things that kind of pop up on the right-hand side and how that status bar changes and so forth? So tag not closed, what do I do? Looks good to me. Yeah, did I? Yeah, that should be good. Oh, I see. Command. Command needs to be closed. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, let's deploy. Out it goes. Let's go back to shared documents. Refresh. Go into library. There's my all pages. There also happens to be a dialog.master out there. One negative, it's kind of like script link, except this one doesn't have a workaround. Only works in the underscore layouts. So if you're actually going to hook in the OK cancel buttons, you basically have to go with a farm type of a solution. I'm sure that will be fixed. And as I click out, hello TechEd. Kind of cool here. Let me go up to the home level. I already got a content editor web part here. Let me jump over to my bit.ly. And you can see how you can use this sp.ui notify. So let me go down here, copy this out. Go back over here, we'll go to the content editor, edit it. Oh, kind of left over, huh? We'll get rid of that. And notice we have a SPUI notify. Add notification. And notice how mine went away? You can make them sticky too. Well, then you got to do the remove notification, so you put it into notify ID. Same thing with status. Status you need to clean up. So let's press OK here. We changed it. Let's add a notification. It's not going away. Got to remove it. Add status. So pretty cool capabilities, all done through JavaScript and really the client object model. A couple of other things here. If we take a look, and this is actually another link for the MSDN overall view of working with Visual Studio, you can see that you have a couple of projects here. In this one, you have a whole bunch of different command UI handlers. But very interesting over here, if we go into this project, this is actually a command action. Command action equals nothing. The other one does a post back into this ribbonized web part. Well, if we go into the ribbonized web part, you can see it starts building and builds up the individual JavaScript inside of the CS. So several different ways that you can do it. Another one, exemplified in patterns and practices, it's here in the manufacturing plant. Or no, it's over here in the proxy. Notice it has a pages here. And it actually references a web part to pull up into the individual dialog. Oh, and hey, another way to get a script link into, because this is a sandbox solution, this script link goes right in, goes across all the individual pages. Here is how you would put in a script link. You also can do things at this custom action level. Instead of you do that, and then you can do something like underscore layouts / sp.debug.js. Whoops. The one thing with this, though, you can't do it with just site assets / because it's a script link. It's expecting it from an external source or the layouts. You can put in one to reference, the centralized jQuery, if you so desire. So a couple of different options there also for implementing this dialog framework and these individual server buttons and the related JavaScript to them. All right, and we'll actually see one more when we get into the jQuery discussion. Switch over here. Why the client object model? Anybody do server object model programming? Yeah, probably anybody that's worked in Visual Studio and worked in SharePoint, right? Well, what the client object model does is give you a complete API that will run on the individual client. And you can do things like batch out different types of executions and so forth. So you get a complete API instead of more services, and that API can be expanded. Gives you an abstraction layer to return results as recognizable SharePoint objects. So if you know the server object model, it's not much of a jump to move into this client object model. and it goes across multiple platforms. .NET, well, as far as we're concerned here, JavaScript. So we can start writing JavaScript just like we're writing server object model code and implementing all of that. One limitation, kind of like a sandbox solution, site collection on down. You aren't going to be using the client object model against the farm, web application objects, and so forth. But for sandbox solutions, perfect type of a solution, and it comes in a JavaScript flavor. So what happens here is that you have your JavaScript controls and logic, integrates with, one slip by. The ECMAScript JavaScript OM, it sends it through a proxy to a WCF service that wraps up the server OM. And it does a JavaScript object notation response, sends it back to the controls, and they can then manipulate it. You also, on top of the client object model, can access lists with HTML. So perform REST, OData type of scenarios. Basically, all you need to do is have a URL type of access, and you can start manipulating everything. Get, put, merge, delete. It's all powered by ADO.NET data services. So lists, Excel even has an OData service. Basically, all Microsoft products are going to have this URI accessible type of interface available as we move on. So you can actually reference the contents inside of an Excel spreadsheet that might be inside of a list and manipulate that as data. Get, put, merge, delete. So full CRUD type of capability. So you do something like this wherever the site is, _VTI bin /listdata.svc. And then do the identifier entry property. And also perform all sorts of filtering with it. So let's look at some data binding with JavaScript object model, OData, and JavaScript jQuery. And here's where we kind of get into that patterns and practices. Well, first we'll do some simple demos. So let me switch over here. Run out of space. And I'll simply go up into my browser. And notice we're going into Sites, SharePoint List, Default. Well, off of every one of these individual sites, there's an _VTI _bin /listdata.svc. So I can pull out the contents of that right there. Parts. Kind of looks like a whole type of inventory solution that we're working with here. Let's say if I just want to see the parts. /parts. Oops. /parts. And I have a friendly feed turned on, but it's basically just feeding back XML that I can then manipulate. So let's go into my Internet Explorer options and turn off my friendly feed. Content settings, turn off or turn on feed reading view. Now you have to go back. Try it again. Caches it. So here's what, when I hit parts, here's what I'm getting. And I can create these URI types of interfaces. Let's go parts 1. See what parts 1 has. Running out of real estate here. There's the individual part. Slot screw 0, skew 0. And you can perform filters in it and things like that. Do things like parts. Question mark. Order by name. Whoops, that didn't work. Did I have a name in there? Title. I didn't remember it. Question mark. $, yeah. And all sorts of filtering against it. Let's take this a step further, and something that I highly suggest you take a look at. And that is off of the bit.ly. Patterns and practices. And it's kind of amazing. I started really getting into this because you always kind of search to find and do different things. And it always seems like you'd be ending on one of the pages that are part of this whole patterns and practices, developing applications, best practices guidance. So proven practices for predictable results. We're actually going to go in and look at the client application models and very quickly take a look at the data access layer that is implemented inside of here. Actually, I think it's in here. Data models. That should be data models. Yeah, maybe it's back down here. So basically, it creates this whole type of a data model related to it in the client implementation. And it uses a REST interface and the client object model using client common, CSOM script, and REST scripts that are automatically deployed in a sandbox solution for an individual application. Let's go take a look at this and look at some of the technologies. that are in here. So let me go in. Here's where it gets a little deeper. Let's go into this site that's created with SharePoint list. And this thing is solid. You just hit the install, away it goes. It sets up everything. And if we look at the individual lists in here, notice we have categories, departments, locations, machine parts, machines. Go into the individual parts. See multiple parts inside of here. And each of them have SKU numbers. So what they've written here is another site, SharePoint List Client, that takes advantage of it through jQuery, Object Model, and REST. Here we'll run one of these and then jump right into the code to see how it works. So I'm going to go to SKU 28, execute a find parts, pulls it back. This is all being done with jQuery accessing the REST interface. We then go into edit inventory, inventory locations. And what is that? Dialog framework, right? Except this one kind of has a save button on it. So it's going to be doing something additionally within it. So if I want to change that to, we now have a quantity of 67, save it on back. Did it take it? Yeah. Needed a refresh there. So let's take a quick look at this. So we're going to start running out of time here. So I want to go into the I want to go into the C drive, into SharePoint guidance. Notice all the individual guidance it gives you. Oops. Into the solution. And sometimes this can be a little daunting because there's so much there, but you kind of pick just that one individual part. Oh, I want to work with REST and jQuery. So if we go down to client.sharepoint, has Silverlight examples, has jQuery, has client object model with JavaScript. Go into the scripts, notice we have client common, CSCOM scripts, REST scripts. And if we look at that elements.xml, they're all going into list/custom scripts. So we can go up to the list, we'll see a custom scripts folder up there with them. And then it can get referenced in that type of a fashion. Let's take a quick look at the restscripts.js. I should have pulled this up earlier. Notice, wouldn't it be nice while you're working with all this stuff to be able to have IntelliSense? You can. So I thought I had pulled this up already. It takes a while for it to build. So in the background, you create these individual references, and you will get IntelliSense in these individual scripts. And build it in that type of a fashion. So notice here some interesting things. We're in the client object model. We get the web. We get the lists. We define a new query. And until we actually load and execute, the information doesn't come down. So you can kind of batch this capability. Yes, question? Yes. No, I don't know off the bat. top of my head. I'm just going with the best practices. But yeah, we're going to be running into a bunch of stuff like that. And you do it, and it seems like with this stuff, you do it even a lot more. So let me hop over here. Maybe I can. Yes. Yeah, as a matter of fact, if we go back here, this is basically the whole thing. Best practices, client application models. Here's the reference implementations. Silverlight model, no thank you. MVVM implementation. REST interface with JavaScript. How you do request batching. So you can kind of just focus right in to these different areas. You want to start using MVP with ASP.NET Web Forms? Here's the place to go for the individual reference. Okay, let's see, we're down to 8 minutes. Why don't we just open it up to questions? That will be the end of the presentation. Great audience. Thank you.